We've come a long way since last March. I remember hearing former President Trump in February assure us that there were only 15 COVID cases in the United States, and so we would never have to worry about the so-called China virus. I heard him say that, anyway, it was no worse than the flu, a misstatement he stood by even as he gulped oxygen before heading to Walter Reed Hospital after a positive test months later. There he would receive a cocktail of drugs that were unavailable to the rest of us. And now here we are, 12 months later. More than 500,000 Americans have died of COVID, and thousands have been left to lead diminished lives due to its insidious complications. I was trying to remember when I first became aware that COVID would be a game changer. I remember progressively fewer people felt comfortable coming to our Godspell rehearsals at the church last spring. I remember our father and daughter showing up wearing masks. They looked a little embarrassed, and the rest of us looked stunned. I remember wondering whether we should serve communion using long strips of bread so no one would touch more than one piece. I remember retracting a press release sent to local newspapers touting worship as usual on March 22nd. Live worship ended that week. We videotaped services, and my mother died as well. I had to have a temperature check and use hand sanitizers before I could see her those last few days, and I was not supposed to hug the staff goodbye. I remember Governor Mills announcing a statewide shelter-in-place order. I remember that the night before it took effect, we taped both the Palm Sunday and Easter services with a 5-minute break in between. I wrote my combined Easter/retirement sermon that afternoon in about an hour, record time. That was the end of church as we knew it, and indoor restaurant meals. There were no more haircuts or dentist appointments. Joe and I got up bright and early on Wednesdays to grocery shop during senior hours, grabbing toilet paper and paper towels whenever we could. Many people wore masks and gave dirty looks to those who didn't. We anxiously watched announcements for the reopening of the Canadian border so we might go to our cottage in August. It didn't open, and so we did not go. The Komen breast cancer walks I had been doing since 2005 were canceled, and Tim and Viv postponed their wedding celebration in Jaipur, India. Our granddaughter Rory was born in April, and we had to wear masks the first time we met her. Just about everyone learned to use Zoom, and we have since talked to the kids and our granddaughter most every Sunday afternoon, more than we would have in normal times. I began taking my sister's Zoom yoga classes, and through them became reacquainted with a West Coast cousin I had not seen in decades. Joe stopped traveling, certainly one of the biggest blessings of this pandemic. In other words, it's been difficult a lot of the time, but not all the time. I haven't been as lonely as many people because Joe is here, but I miss going to church, and I miss my lunches and rambling conversations with Lori and her dad. However, in my family, we were incredibly blessed that we could all quarantine and isolate for 10 days so we could spend Christmas together with a masked bonfire and decorating an outdoor night tree for the birds earlier in December. When winter set in, we started double masking, and then we heard rumors of vaccines. We became well acquainted with the Pfizer and Moderna varieties, their efficacy, dosage timing, and side effects. Joe and I received our second vaccination on February 27th. The side effects were actually a bit anticlimactic. I was creaky and a bit stiff the next day, but that might have had as much to do with cross-country skiing the day before, the first time in nearly 40 years, than it did with the vaccine. But receiving the vaccine is like a light at the end of a very dark tunnel. After getting that shot, I felt freer than I had in the past year. I felt like we were getting so close to making it, though I'm not sure what making it means. I do know that life will never return to what it was like in pre-pandemic days. For one thing, we found out that we could prepare a meal as delicious as any restaurant chef. It's cheaper and more satisfying too. I'll probably continue to order our groceries online. It's very convenient. It will be a while before I give a hug to someone not in my family, and I may never do a handshake ever again. But all these ways that life will be different post-COVID are okay. You see, in the end, over this past year, I have learned what's important to me. My health, my family's health, our dogs, yoga, time with family and faithful friends, writing, reading, realizing that caring for others is also a way of caring for myself, being grateful for all that God has blessed me with. And so now we'll wait for the vaccine to become fully effective, and then a few more weeks or until CDC guidelines change to be sure that we are not COVID carriers. And before we know it, it will be late April. Time to celebrate Rory's first birthday, hopefully face to face.